Skeet, I noticed a tube protruding out of the hill here that looks like it leads back to the house. You said this was part of your air conditioning system, I believe.
Well, what it really is my escape hatch for when Bridget gets mad at me. But seriously, it's 200 foot of aluminum culvert, and there's two sections, 100 foot in each section. And there are subterranean tubes, and the function of them is to draw in ambient air temperature or outside air temperature through the tubes to partially dehumidify the air and to cool it with the Earth's temperature. And then that will come up in the crawl space. The tubes are popped up in there like two periscopes, and the air would exit into that area, fill up the lower part of the crawl space, and then as it is warmed, it will go up the double wall in the back of the house and up through the floor of the greenhouse. And then it is finally exhaust through the louvered areas up at the apex of the house. There's 3 of those that will allow the hot air to exhaust to the outside.
So the crawl space being the portion underneath the house.
Right.
And then that cool air loops up around through the house. Is there any particular name for that process?
All right, this is what is known as a thermal chimney. You create heat at the top of the greenhouse, and due to the temperature differentials between the cool air entering the tubes and the hot air at the top of the greenhouse, it creates a thermal siphoning type chimney, somewhat similar to that of a fireplace.
I see. So basically we're taking advantage of the fact that the Earth is naturally cool underground, and that is cooling the air which originates out here in the woods away from the house.
Correct.
All right, now the other aspect of the air conditioning system of the house has to do with evaporative cooling, I think you said.
That's correct, and we have what is known as a dehumidification wall, and it's on the west side of our home, and we can go on over and look at it.
This is the wall that you call the evaporative cooling wall, but to me it just looks like a big concrete block wall. You want to explain how this works?
Well, basically you're correct. It's really 2 concrete block walls that are separated by an airspace. Now what you see on the outside here is just unfinished concrete block. Eventually it will be stuccoed for an aesthetics reason.
Right.
Then there's an airspace, and then the interior wall faces is the finished wall on the interior of the house, both in the bedroom upstairs and in the living room downstairs, and it has a stucco finish on it. Now the function of this is that these 2 layers of wall are closed off with insulation all the way around. And once the sun comes across to the west side of the house, this mass starts to heat up.
Right.
As a result of that heat gathering in this thermal mass here, then it will start to siphon moisture from the interior of the house and heat at the same time, and that evaporative action will add a cooling effect to the inside of the house, both from a humidity standpoint and from a temperature standpoint. Now, that is vaporized in the wall, and eventually, because of the heat, will be drawn through the concrete block and into the atmosphere.
And this is done without any fans or any power at all?
That's correct.
So this is strictly a passive evaporative cooling system and is the dehumidifier and the air conditioner for your house.
Right, and by the way, this is not really a new concept. It was used in Texas and in Florida in the 1880s by a more wealthy person who could afford to put that type of structure on the east and west walls of their homes, and it was cooled primarily just by the evaporative cooling before air conditioning existed.
So the modern-day pioneers are just rediscovering what the old pioneers knew.
It's the wheel all over again.
Let's talk about the heating portion of the house now. We can see the greenhouse here, and I wonder if you'd explain a little bit of how the heating mode of the house works.
Okay, as you can see, with the sun coming in on the south, this is the southern exposure. Now, this is composed of a greenhouse section, which goes back to where you see the double cooling wall here. From that section on back is the interior of the house. Now, below grade, there's a crawl space, approximately 3.5 feet. So that makes a loop between the greenhouse, the crawl space, then there's a double wall on the back side of the house, the north side. Then the attic is open to that, and then back into the greenhouse. So what happens is during the winter months, the sun comes in and heats up the air in the greenhouse. That air's got no place else to go because of the insulation and the double glazing and all that. So it is forced through the attic, and due to heat loss and the fact that there is no other space for the air to go, it will start down the back wall. And as this air loses heat, it becomes a little bit heavier and heavier, and it eventually comes down into the crawl space and starts the cycle over again because the hot air is moving out and the cool air comes in at the bottom and takes its place. It's distributing heat equally throughout the system.
So this is what you called your convection loop.
That's right, the gravity loop convection, and it's a very effective means of heating a home.
All right, now, you mentioned earlier you kind of referred to this building as a thermos bottle.
Yeah, if you think of the internal living space as being the liner of the bottle, then you have an air space, and then you have the metal exterior of or plastic, whatever it is, of the thermos bottle. Once you put heat in there or cool in there, it will tend to stay, and the air space will insulate from the exterior.
All right, now we have our passive thermos bottle house, and I believe there's a name for this house. What is the name of this house?
Okay, it was designed by Lee Porter Butler, and he has tagged it with the name of Ecosia. Basically, this is the name of an organization that he has established to help people such as ourselves to build this type of home. And it loosely translated means essence of life is a Greek term.
I see. Now, the essence of all of these types of houses, active and passive solar energy, is to save energy. Do you have any examples that you could share with us that would indicate whether or not this house actually does save energy?
Well, I guess about the best example I can give is that we do not have a backup heating system, and we do not have a backup cooling system, and our electric bill year to date from January to now has been $31.
Now, you're telling me that for about 6 or 7 months that your electric bill has only been $31?
It's averaged $31. We've had
average $31 a month.
Yeah, we've had say I believe it was around 26 and then up to about 37 somewhere in there.
So that's in the winter, and of course we're in the summer months now with 90 to 95 degree temperatures.
Right.
All right, let me explore a little bit further about the quality of life in a passive house like this. Do you think we could go in and maybe talk to your family and find out what they think about living in a unique house such as this?
We'd love to have you all. Come on in.
All right, let's go. Bridgie, I imagine a lot of housewives are going to be curious as to whether there's anything unique about keeping house in a passive house. Is it any different from a normal house?
There's not any extra thing that you have to do, just a matter of opening a window if you want, more fresh air to come in. One thing I have noticed that since you do not have a forced air heating system or an air conditioning blowing, there's less dust. So that's a very good point, I know, for the housewives.
Well, the house is really an exciting house. I'm really quite taken with it. And I noticed that you haven't really given up anything for your lifestyle change. You have dishwashers and everything that a normal housewife has.
That's correct. We decided if Skeet had his way, he would get rid of the dishwasher, the washing machine and dryer, the whole bit. But of course, I wanted them. And it's just like living in a normal house. And of course, you have the more openness to it. That's very delightful. Lets the sunlight in.
Some of our viewers have seen active solar houses, and they've seen valves and pumps and fans and so on. And I haven't seen any of these. And my question to you would be, is it hard to operate the heating and cooling equipment in this house?
There's no equipment to fool with. The only equipment, I guess you would call it, would be at the beginning of the summer if you would open up the doors in the top of the greenhouse and open up the cooling tubes underneath in the crawl space. You would just, a matter of turn a lever at the beginning of the summer, and you wouldn't have to fool with it the rest of the summer until the weather started getting cooler in the fall. And then you would just go and turn them closed. And that's all there is to it.